As you are all probably aware, President Joe Biden has exited the 2024 presidential race. He will no longer seek the Democratic Party's nomination. He's expected to address the nation later this week on camera, I assume. But here's what he sent out to the nation in this letter that said, "My fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we've made great progress as a nation. Today, America is the strongest economy in the world. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation and lowering prescription drug costs for seniors, expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans. We've provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate legislation in the history of the world. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We've protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world. And here's the kicker. It's been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it had been my intention to seek re-election up until, honestly, Saturday, I believe it is in the best interest of my party in this country for me to stand down, to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week. I express my deepest gratitude for Kamala Harris. However, there was not an endorsement of Kamala Harris initially in this letter. So there it is. That was the letter signed by Joseph Robinette Biden, thanking his vice president, but not endorsing her. But just 25-30 minutes later, he did tweet this out, a picture of him and Vice President Harris together, in which he said, "My fellow Democrats, I have decided not to accept the nomination and focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this." And Kamala Harris, in kind, returned on what is now the worst platform ever, but that's okay. We're still relying on it over on Twitter. "On behalf of the American people, I thank Joe Biden for his extraordinary leadership as president of the United States and for his decades of service to our country. I'm honored to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination."
The video will continue in just a moment, but first I have a message for you. TYT needs your help. Membership is vital to survival, so please go to tyt.com/team and become a member today.
I need to stop down and just talk about this. Jordan Ewell, your reactions to Joe Biden stepping down, your reactions to that letter, touting some of the things that he did. Not all of it necessarily has come to fruition or is as incredible as he says, but I want your reactions on this.
I am so glad that Biden stepped down. It was the right call. It's something that I know you, myself, many people watching this have been calling for months. I am in the camp that was talking about his mental acuity back in 2019. So none of this was surprising. I think where it happened and when it happened on the debate stage, which was the catalyst for this, of course, that was a little shocking because it was just so bad and on full display. But this should have happened a while ago. He shouldn't have declared that he was running again this cycle. And as great as it is, and with the energy that we're seeing around a new candidate, assuming it's Kamala Harris, barring unforeseen circumstances, it's just him prolonging this and his team prolonging this does create a headache for the now Harris campaign. They have a much shorter runway. They don't have the benefit of that first debate with Trump, as we'll get to later. There might not be another one. So there are going to be some disadvantages that anybody stepping in to replace him will endure. But overall, I think this is a good thing. Of course, we have much more to talk about on this, but first reaction, thank God.
Yeah, and we're gonna be talking about the Harris campaign in more detail, but to your alleviation, I think it seems like the majority of Democrats agree. In fact, those polled, according to the Washington Post, prefer Harris to other possible Biden replacements. We can throw this up, 29% want Kamala Harris versus Gavin Newsom, 7%, Michelle Obama, 4%. There's a lot of other polling that sort of conflicts with this, especially when you square them up against Trump. But I think just top line, we can say two things at once, and here's what I'll say. A lot of mainstream media today will say Joe Biden is a hero. He put himself second and put his country first. Now, I don't disagree with that, but I absolutely think two things. Number one, Jordan's right, it should have happened earlier. And number two, this was because of a lot of pressure. Let's face it, guys, the last 9 months has been colored by one very particular thing happening in the Middle East and one very particular policy point that Joe Biden has dug his heels in on, which is Gaza. And the fact of the matter is that young people, particularly, and actually increasingly people of color, the NAACP called on Biden to not send any more weapons over to Israel. We're saying this needs to stop. This is tainting your legacy. We disagree with this. And actually, Jordan was in 2019 talking about Biden's mental acuity. So were a lot of other folks. That all kind of tampered down once the war was on, right? And so all of this, I think, has to be given. There has to be given credit, even though not every pundit who called for Biden to step down, not every media outlet will credit the movement. But you have to tip your hat to the movement of millions of people around this country who have stood up against Joe Biden's worst policy legacy in Israel. This is a win for them. Kamala Harris arguably could be to the even shred to the less awful on Gaza. And there are some indicators of that. So I just think we have to take stock of that. And we also cannot fall too deeply into this like Joe Biden is a massive hero. Obviously, it would. I don't think you're a hero when you see the writing on the wall and Nancy Pelosi's like, it's time to go and starts playing closing time, and it's weird.
Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.